You're listening to the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Pinelands Nursery. Here are your hosts, Fran Chismar and Tom Kinezic.
Welcome back to The Buzz, brought to you by the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Magic Mind and Pinelands Nursery. I am Fran Chismar.
And I'm Tom Kinezic, and today we're buzzing into episode 145. And like always, before we get into our fun native plant discussions, we have a little bit of follow-up to do. And by little, I really mean one item. We threw out the idea of street trees and having an episode about street trees, if that was of interest. And the people have spoken, and it is of interest.
Yes.
And I've emailed the person that I met at this meeting, and have yet to hear back. So hopefully we can get that rolling. We'll get that an episode in the near future about that.
I'm hopeful to have that conversation, because I think I think there's some, not stigma, but just some mythology, like on how some of these trees are selected. I think it depends on the municipality or the city. Like, I know some of the bigger cities, there's a little more that goes into the selections. I think some of the smaller municipalities, probably not. Based on some of the lists I've seen.
There's like having the conversations. Well, the article I presented a couple weeks ago, and then some of the conversations I had with this other person I met, it was like, oh, you're really taking a lot of, in cities at least. Yes. You're taking a lot of different components in attributes in mind. Yeah. It was funny just talking about, like, I think we mentioned it last time about the fruit and people. Yeah. There's all these memes that pop up. Oh, you should have fruit trees as street trees because then people can eat whenever they want, and they're like, oh, it attracts a lot of pests, and the people who have those trees outside their house are not happy because you have rats and you have cockroaches and you have people loitering there too, and then it's like when the fruit's ripe for a short window of time, and anything that was not picked up, is a slipping hazard, one, and then it stinks on top of it. Like, rotting fruit is not a pleasant smell. No. So she was like, it's a good in theory, but it's not in practice. There's a lot of things that go wrong with it. So
just as an example, growing up in Levittown, every tree in my development had a fruit tree planted on it. So in our yard, we had a pear tree. Mm-hmm. Not once in all the years that I lived there did it actually produce an edible pear because of the wasps and all the other – and plus, no one was spraying them to get an edible crop. But it became weapons. Yeah. We would throw them at each other. They'd get thrown at the houses. I'd be lying if I didn't say windows got broken. So I understand – because there were pears, apples, and cherry trees, and they were all weapons. I don't remember one edible fruit the entire time.
Yeah, it's I think that's another thing people take for granted is, like, it's really hard. I shouldn't say it's really hard to grow fruit. It's not that hard to grow fruit. It's really hard to get fruit that looks like it does in the grocery store. Fruit that looks like you're familiar with.
I think it's also climate. Like, I was actually pretty jealous this morning because I was thinking of that here. Mm-hmm. And then I was listening to a podcast that was happening in Southern California, and they were all saying how they have lemon trees and lime trees and pomegranates and oranges and grapefruit, and they were all bringing them into the office every day to share with the excesses. I was like, oh, that would be really nice, but we don't really live in a climate. We get blueberries and strawberries. We get blackberries. We get a different type of fruit.
Yeah. You're right. You're right.
It's just different. Like, we get that harvest a little later in the year that we're really fortunate to get, especially from native things like that. Yeah. Yeah. So, but I was kind of jealous hearing that. I'm like, I'd like to walk out and pick a fresh lemon.
Yeah. That was in retrospect, I was like, we're definitely taking someone's lemons. We took my wife and I, our honeymoon was part of it was on the Amalfi Coast in Italy, and there's like same thing. It's just lemon trees in everyone's backyards. Yeah. And there's a big thunderstorm that rolled through. And on the walk after this thunderstorm to the restaurant we're going to for dinner, there's just lemons all over the sidewalk. I was like, well, they fell off of someone's tree, and but we're going to take a couple home to have a little lemon water, and it was very romantic at the time. But I was like, oh, yeah, we did just hopefully they didn't miss the couple lemons that were literally like giant lemons just rolling down the street. So that was a fond memory.
All right, so if you're in Italy and you were
if you're missing
theft occurred on your property
back in 2019, someone took a couple of lemons after a storm. But.
All right, I think that's pretty good follow up. I don't think we had anything else.
No,
right?
not that I can recall.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's start with the plants that we're vibing with this week and go to one of our favorite segments. That's hot.
That's hot.
That's loud. Actually, I should have tested that before we started.
It's also surprising because we haven't been gotten a cease and desist letter from Paris Hilton or the Hilton family yet for that clip.
No, I think it's
maybe I'm just willing it into existence.
Oh, please don't do that. That would that would rocket us up into the spotlight. There, we start getting that.
Yeah,
I don't think we're that popular. So why not? I want you to go first, just because it was something we were just kind of talking about.
Yeah,
like coincidentally.
Yeah. So, well, I can't share too much.
No,
because we started recording a native plant every day.
Just now,
just like literally 10 minutes ago, we
episode.
ended our first episode. And there was just funny some of the parallels that were between my plant this week and the plant for that for the first episode. But it is a quiz in the beginning, so I don't want to give it away.
Exactly.
This is probably already too much of a hint. But my plant this week is Morella pennsylvanica, which is northern bayberry. And why I chose it is it does semi-evergreen. And right now,
yes,
the ones we have here around the nursery and in nursery production are like this gorgeous, like dark green mixed with like dark purple, like almost look black in ways.
Yeah.
So they look really beautiful. And then on top of it, the leaves are just so fragrant. It's like just a pleasure to work with.
Bayberry and sweet fern are the two plants that I can't walk by without picking a leaf and crushing it.
Yeah.
Under my nose and smelling. I do it every single time.
Yeah, it was one of those I was smelling it and saying, why don't I have more of these planted around my house? I just love the fragrance. I would describe it as piquant, which means that it is a pleasantly sharp taste or scent.
Yes.
So, which is
very
a
descriptive
very,
word. Yes.
Good description for it because it is a very sharp smell, but it's pleasantly sharp. It's not like
it's somewhat
it's
spicy.
Yeah,
like, to me a little bit.
Yeah,
I don't
definitely
know.
Like it hits your nose hard.
Yes.
It's not something where you're just like, oh, it's like it's not
pleasant.
It's not a mild smell.
It's pleasant, but yeah,
it's in your face.
Yes,
but it's good. So I took a little bit of a write up. And I'm just realizing I didn't save the version that had my little notes in there for where this came from. But one of the things with this plant is you can collect the fruit, which is like a little bayberry.
Yeah.
And you can use it to make bayberry candles, which I had always assumed you kind of like just crushed up the berries, it added some of the scent to the beeswax or the wax you're using. I didn't realize that, oh no, you're actually harvesting the wax from the berries itself to make these candles. And so bayberries have a natural wax in them that has a greenish hue and wintry forest aroma. The wax can be extracted from the bayberries by melted down to make your own bayberry candles with a few simple steps. Collecting the berries is the most time-consuming part, but it's well worth the hard work for these beautifully scented homemade bayberry candles. Basically what you collect the berries and then you boil them, and I guess the wax basically just floats to the top. And then you can use that wax. The recipes that I saw for this basically said it's really hard to get enough bayberry wax to make candles just out of bayberry, and it's a little bit more difficult to work with to do it that way. So I think they used a few pounds of beeswax for every pound of bayberry wax they got. But it took 15 pounds of bayberries to make 1 pound of bayberry wax.
So, and just for those of you that are wondering, bayberry are not edible to humans.
Yes.
They're poisonous to humans. So they're considered possibly unsafe, which is that's close enough.
Yeah, good thing to note there. But it's like I said, semi-evergreen, really beautiful, all times of year. But I particularly like them in the winter. And then how tall do they get, Fran? About like 6 to 10 feet tall?
Yeah, I'm going to say that. 6 to 12. in the right conditions. But mostly, like when you see them beachfront because of the wind.
And they have a salt tolerance.
Yeah, there's a salt tolerance. They're typically a little bit smaller in those settings, but I'm going to guess 6 to 12 based on conditions.
And I'll include the link for the one, I keep calling it a recipe, but it's like a how-to make bearberry candles.
That would be very cool.
One, you can see who actually, there's multiple sources of this information, but you can see where I got the information from. And then if you want to try it yourself, like I'm itching and saying, oh yeah, I want to do this next year. Then you have a reference to go and use.
Awesome.
So, which I get a little weirded out by online recipes because I'm like, someone could have just wrote this. They don't know what they're actually doing. And now I'm following along like some dingbat saying, oh, I read it on the internet. It must work. But,
well, you got to try it out.
Yeah. Or they have a mental lapse and there's like, oh yeah, I forgot to include the part where I did this crazy thing that no one would expect to just do. Or I forgot this ingredient. There's it's a little going off topic right away. We have a recipe card from Melissa's grandma for like she has these rolls that are like famous in her family. And so we have a recipe card of how to make them in her own handwriting. It's just like a little cool project that my wife had her do. And it's missing an ingredient when you actually look at it. So it's like, if you knew how to make the rolls, then you know how to do it. You also don't need the recipe card. But the recipe card itself is not going to teach you how to do this. You will have a great failure if you try and do it. And I always wondered that when you're reading these online recipes. Like, but then again, I never really follow them either. I'm just like, yeah. Oh, I made, what was it? Elote quinoa salad.
Oh, how was that?
For the barbecue I did on the Super Bowl. It was fantastic. But the recipe was actually a couscous salad. I'm like, I don't have any couscous, so I'm going to use quinoa, and I'm going to add avocado because I can. I just kind of use it as inspiration, and then I just kind of do my own thing.
I take parts. Like I find like when I do something like chili, I take 3 recipes and take all the parts that I like from all of them and kind of do that. So I kind of use them as a rough guide, and then
a lot of times I don't even read. I just like someone needs to have a creative title, and then I'll just make what I think that they're making, and just make it my own way. I don't actually read the recipe, but that's just how I do things.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all.
All
so
right.
I have something I don't think we've ever mentioned on the podcast before, and the only reason that made me think of it was I visited my mom and my sister this past week, and my sister is over in Pennsylvania, and the natural area across from her. Did I just say across? That would kill me. That's my Philly. Across from her house, I noticed common snowberry, which is Symphoricarpus albus, and typically at this point, the fruit is already turning brown and dropping in late January to early February because it's been unseasonably warm. It's still a little white and still hanging on. So it stood out immediately for me. So from wildflower.org, it's a deciduous shrub with a height of 3 to 6 feet. It blooms white to pink flowers in June and July, native from Vermont to Virginia, west to Illinois and up to Minnesota. So it's not really, like, it's kind of inventive in New Jersey. It's not really natural to New Jersey. Maybe like that northwest area. It's a little more normal. Wildlife, songbirds, game birds, small mammals, and browsers use this plant for food, cover, and nesting sites. It is poisonous to humans, so it's low toxicity if eaten. Symptoms include vomiting and diarrhea. The toxic principle is calcium oxalate, possibly saponic glycoside, the poisonous plant of North Carolina. Larval host for the Vashti Sphinx. So all that information was courtesy of wildflower.org. So it's just something that I know it's not really in our native range, so it's not something we see often, but it's something that stands out when you see it, and it's typically you shouldn't see it at this time of the year. Like, so it was just kind of interesting for me to see it and have it stand out.
And it's native to someone's native range.
Yes.
So,
well, like I said, it's more Vermont to Virginia, but it's just west of New Jersey and Delaware. So you're hitting more more that Piedmont Appalachian range, not really coastal plain, but it's it typically likes it is a facultative upland plant. It likes a little bit heavier soil, so you're not really going to see it in most of the sandier soil. So just thought it was a plant I forgot about because we don't see it, we don't sell it. I don't really see it on plant lists, so it popped up, and I was like, it'd be kind of cool just to bring that one up.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's a great choice for this.
Awesome.
And so let's move on to this or that.
You can get with this, or you can get with that.
All right, can I talk about this for a minute?
Yeah, that's why I was like a little hesitant because I have a feeling you have a lot on your mind.
No, I just want to say I'm good. I'm in a good place. So we do have a winner, and the winner is
everyone already knows, Fran.
It's Tom, 25-9. So
you made a little bit. Well, a comeback in considering you were at 0 accidentally for a portion of time.
Well, you know, I will say this. So originally, you were winning 15-3, and I noticed that, and someone made a comment that they voted for me because I never seem to win. And I looked, and I don't. Like, you and I are both competitive people, and no one likes to consistently lose. So I made some comments jokingly under his post going, man, I think our fans aren't really fans of mine because I'm not winning. Maybe I should retire, you know. And then I started getting votes.
A lot of likes on that post saying you should retire.
Well, then all of a sudden it went from 15-3 to like 15-12, or it was like 16-13. And I'm like, I don't want sympathy. I'm also a proud man. I don't want sympathy votes. So I went back and deleted those comments because they were kind of needy. Even though they were jokingly, I was like, that's needy. I don't want that. And then I accidentally deleted my my
Your
votes.
choice, yeah.
So I did make a comeback, 25-9, and people were still voting for me because I wasn't winning, and I kind of felt, man, I'm really out of touch with what our listeners want because I'm consistently losing. And I'm like, it's no fun to lose. If I'm not having fun, are they having fun? And then I started to think about it. I was like, I'm not picking, I think, what the average listener wants because I started thinking it like I'm not necessarily a mainstream type person. I'm not referencing you, just me. Like in my clothes and my music, like not what the average person would pick. And I'm like, oh, you know, this is par for the course of how I think and my likes. It's a little more maybe alternative, not mainstream. And I instantly became okay with it. And then I looked at it saying, if you were to total up even what I had before, like we had almost 50 people vote.
Oh, yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
I think they really liked the Cougar story. It got a lot of interest, and our listeners really responded. Whether I win or lose.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, obviously, I don't want to lose.
I always look at it this way, Fran. At the end of the day, it's our show. I can pick what the heck I want.
Well, you know, it's like I said, it's hard to. No one wants to consistently lose.
Yeah.
And I started thinking, I was like, what am I doing wrong? And then I'm like, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just picking what I like, and what I like isn't necessarily always mainstream.
Yeah.
And that's I've always been like that. Now, would I be upset if I won every week and think I was selling out and becoming mainstream? No, it'd be kind of cool to have a win streak, but I'm okay. I'm good.
Yeah.
It's all good.
And that's why your article this week is definitely an article. It's definitely not pandering to the audience in any way, shape, or form. But so with the articles last week,
yes,
mine was the Cougars coming back to the East Coast, an opinion piece in the New York Times,
which I greatly underestimated. I figured a lot of people wouldn't like the thought of that, like for safety reasons. Not
see, I thought people wouldn't like my take on it, but I think I was I'm a lot more middle of the road than I give myself credit for sometimes. But then, and your article was on the California seed banks?
No, it was the Northeast Cottontail.
I thought you did that one a while ago.
Oh, you're right. It was the California
That's why I put the little question mark in there.
Was it the California seed bank? Yeah, it was the California seed banks. Maybe I just didn't update mine. So it was you're right. It was the California seed bank.
Yeah, which was a really interesting article and really important.
Because someone did say they liked yours better, but they voted for me because it had to do with native plants.
Yeah.
So that's what it was.
Yeah, mine was not. But mine was about native plants in a roundabout way. The author didn't really touch on it as much as I probably should have, where it's basically one of the issues that we have here in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast is the deer pressure is just so high, and they have no their natural predators aren't here anymore. And this was a natural predator that could come back and help with that, which the deer pressure was actually talked about in the article, but they didn't talk about, okay, what does that do to the ecosystems as much?
No, and I think a lot of the times when we're not, even though our articles may not be directly related to native plants, they're indirectly, like the Northeast cottontail had to do, it was part of the decline was the lack of native cover, or deer browse. Like there were a lot of other factors or just more predators. It was an ecosystem off balance, which mainly comes back to native plants in some way.
It's amazing how it all comes back to native plants. It's like it really there's so many articles where it's like, this kind of bee is in peril, and then it's like native habitat is gone.
Yeah,
and then it's like, this is our streams are getting like straighter, and it's because we've managed them, and then it's destroying all this native habitat. There's no more floodplains. I actually thought about for this week doing that. There's a YouTube video I watched. And then I just saw Bill Young actually shared it on LinkedIn, and then Brad Madrinsky liked it on LinkedIn and made a comment, and that's where I was like, I would love to actually present this.
Yeah,
because it's talking about how our rivers. When you think of rivers, like if you've been to Paris and you've seen the Seine running through Paris, and it's just a wall, a rock wall, and the river's just straight or kind of curves a little bit through the middle of the city. That's not how it's supposed to be. That's supposed to be where Notre Dame is supposed to be a floodplain. But now we've channelized it, and we have all this really critical historical structures there. You can't get rid of them, so we kind of have to have it channelized, but it's not supposed to be like that. There's areas that are supposed to flood, and they're supposed to have different plant species, and those are really critical for different animal and insect species too. But at the end of the day, I couldn't figure out how to present. I'm like, well, I can't read what am I going to do? Read the YouTube video? Like turn the subtitles on and just read the whole thing.
Read the closed captioning. No, but that's very interesting, because we've been intervening like this throughout the history of man, and it's a everlasting impact, and it's what you hold more dearly to.
Yeah. And I always forget the name. I think it's the Assaskunk Creek through Trenton. They just daylighted a whole bunch of it over the last couple of years. But at one point in time, that creek was almost completely underground under the city of Trenton and going out to the Delaware River.
And there's tributaries to Assaskunk all the way into Springfield Township right here.
Yep.
So or Burlington Township right there. So it has a long-reaching impact. So you get to pick. You want to go first?
Well, Fran, I was going to say out of pity, I would like you to choose whether you'd like to go first or second.
If I could go first, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. Like
our
yours and I
are fairly similar.
Yeah. They kind of like play off of each other very well. Now, when I read the title of my article, it's not a prank. It's going to break down a lot of the misconceptions and a lot of explanation. So I thought this was a very informative article that was put out by the University of Maryland Extension, and it was on extensionumd.edu, and it's called Cultivars of Native Plants. Mm-hmm. It is kind of long. I'm going to try to read through it quickly because I think there's a lot of good information in here. What are cultivars of native plants? We add native plants to our yards to attract and support pollinators as they pass through. Many native bees and all moths and butterflies need native plants to complete their life cycles. The decline of insect populations has numerous causes, but is directly tied to the decline of natural areas with thriving native plant populations. On this webpage, we examine how the native plants in our landscapes affect the health of wild native plant populations. Hereditary material, DNA, and the genes of plant pollen and seeds, for example, move from our yards into natural areas. Pollinators and wind transport pollen over distances ranging from less than a mile to many miles. The wind also transports many types of seed, while others are carried by animals. Seeds carried by birds can travel many miles between consumption and deposition. A yard does not need to be adjacent to a natural area to share DNA with it. When the native plants in our yards are locally sourced and locally adapted, their DNA can make a positive contribution to the survival of wild plant populations. The adaptive genetic diversity they share is important because it allows native species to persist despite the rapidly changing conditions of our modern environment. When the plants in our yards are cultivars of native species, their genetic makeup is the result of artificial rather than natural selection, and they possess little genetic diversity. The offspring of cultivars crossed with native plants are called hybrids. Many vegetable gardeners are familiar with the consequences of hybridization. Sweet peppers cross-pollinate with hot peppers in the same garden. The hybrid seeds that result produce peppers with variable levels of heat. Similarly, sweet corn cross-pollinates with field corn. The ears that result contains kernels expressing the range of flavor and texture of their parents, not being ideal for their purpose. In the vegetable garden, we can easily dispose of unwanted hybrids. Once the DNA from cultivars of native plants makes it into wild populations, there's no way to dispose of it. The new DNA affects the ability of wild native plants to survive and has ramifications for all the species that interact with the native plants as well. Studies have shown that, in some cases, cross-pollination with cultivated varieties result in the loss of the wild relative. Nativar is a word resulting from the combination of the words native and cultivar. It has the good quality of being shorter than cultivar of a native plant. However, the inclusion of the entire sound of the word native lends the impression that they are good ecological substitutes for native plants. Although they are marketed regionally as native plants, they are sold throughout the world. Common misperceptions about the cultivars of native plants. Misperception number 1, it's always bad to use a cultivar of native plants. Facts to consider. The question is not whether it's morally wrong to use cultivars, but whether they are good for ecosystem health. Sterile cultivars of native plants are benign. They can't cross-pollinate with their wild relatives, so they pose no risk to wild plant populations. When cultivars are beneficial to ecosystems, they are good. For example, plant breeders are working to create disease-resistant cultivars of native tree species that have been hit hard by non-native invasive plant pathogens. If done with care, it is possible that such cultivars could be used to intentionally spread beneficial DNA into wild populations to help restore those species. Misperception number 2. The number of plants we put in our yard is insignificant compared to the number found in natural areas. Facts to consider. Actually, cultivars do not need to outnumber their wild relatives in order to have a profound impact on their DNA. Even so, in Maryland, the combined acreage of commercial, residential, and agricultural land is greater than the acreage of remaining natural areas. For many native species, the number of cultivated plants grown in residential and commercial areas may exceed the number of wild ones growing in the green areas. For example, Maryland's green industry sells tens of thousands of butterfly weeds annually. In Maryland, the number of potted butterfly weeds sold in a single year probably outnumbers the total number of butterfly weeds growing in the wild. Misperception number 3. Nativars used in urban areas can't contaminate native plant populations in natural areas. Facts to consider. Some pollinators travel long distances, with migratory pollinators being extreme examples of this. Some plants are wind-pollinated and their pollen is carried for miles. Barriers like parking lots and highways do not discourage wind-borne pollen. Seeds carried by wind, water, or birds travel long distances. Seeds from our yards wash down storm drains into local stream parks. Once the seed of a cultivar establishes in a wild population, gene flow accelerates. The literature offers many examples of wild plants that have been genetically replaced by their domesticated relatives. How much more am I going? Okay, it's not too bad. Misperception number 4. Adding the gene type of cultivars in a natural area is good because it increases the genetic diversity of the system. Facts to consider. It is true the simple definition of genetic diversity is the sum of all different types. However, some types of genetic diversity are bad for local ecosystems. Plant populations in natural areas benefit from adaptive genetic diversity, not random genetic diversity. Switchgrass cultivars provide 2 good examples. 1, seed dormancy has been bred out of several native grass species to create cultivars for use where quick establishment from seed is desirable. Seed dormancy, however, is an attribute that prevents native seeds from germinating before winter is over. The addition of this genetic diversity would be harmful to wild switchgrass populations. 2, it is true that cross-pollination with strong cultivars can make relatives stronger. In natural areas, this could benefit the plant species as well as the pollinators and songbirds that depend upon it. However, increased vigor would also make the wild relatives more effective at competing with other plant species. The switchgrass cultivar Shelter provides a good example. It has been bred for increased vigor, and it establishes quickly and takes over an area completely. Other meadow grasses and flowers and all the insects and birds that depend upon them lose out. The balance of the ecosystem is at risk. Misperception number 5. The most important performance yardstick is how often pollinators visit cultivars of native plants in garden trials. Facts to consider: pollinators need their native plants in natural areas. If a cultivar attracts a lot of pollinators in the garden but disrupts the balance of natural systems, then taking the larger view, it has not benefited pollinators. No mid-Atlantic native plant cultivar has been tested to determine the impact of cross-pollination on wild populations or their pollinators. Misperception number 6. Cultivars in naturally occurring sport are not a concern. Facts to consider: sports are sometimes a result of recessive genes expressed as a result of inbreeding. In other words, they lack the quantity of adaptive genetic diversity present in most wild plants. Other times, they are the result of random mutations and usually are not adaptive, although the naturally occurring parent of Cornish Florida, Appalachian Spring, provides an exception to that rule. In any case, the problems of mass production of a smaller number of individuals remain. I swear I'm almost done. I think like everyone's punishment is my article. Misperception number 7. Local ecotype native plants are no good because of climate change. Facts to consider: climate change models based on a scenario where we begin to change our emissions behavior now show that Maryland's climate will be like Virginia's in the year 2100 and impact the native plants won't be severe. How to support local ecosystems is still enjoy your yard. I'm going to skip that. So, it does go into some really good tips on some cultivars that are good for certain reasons. It's not I don't view this article as an article against cultivars. I view it as an article of at least explaining what cultivars are and what the potential is if used to the extreme. I kind of feel like it's not saying don't use a cultivar. It's saying know what you're doing. It's saying, hey, you can still have a cultivar if you're removing invasive species, or you can help your park remove native species, or you can have non-invasive, not native species, or certain cultivars are okay. It's just saying, like anything else, moderation is the key. If you're going to introduce some of these non-native plants, use some moderation, use some thought behind it, know what you're doing, just educate yourself. And I think it was some really good information that we haven't touched on with cultivars. We're not saying we're opposed or against to cultivars. I think you and I have come full circle after speaking with Matt Cuba. Yep. So it's just some of these things that it's good to know. So many things we don't have all the information. So it's just good to make sure you know what your options are and that you're making an educated choice.
Yeah, definitely. It's there's a lot to take in this article. I think it's a lot of really, really good points to consider. And it's interesting because my article kind of takes a lot of the same stances in this, but it's how do people actually use this information? Yeah. And do you have anything more to say about your article? I don't want to segue in. No,
I was just going to say, a lot of it is, if you're going to choose a non-native plant, just try to choose one that doesn't hurt your local ecosystems. Know that your choices have an impact and try to make a better choice.
Yeah.
It's not saying don't do some of these things. It's just saying everything's a choice. Which one are you willing to make?
Yeah, and that's when we talk about some of these garden trials that happen. Yeah. And we talk about them on here all the time, and we promote them. It's they're analyzing oftentimes garden worthiness and a handful of components of their ecological value, but it's hard to come up with the full gamut. I remember.
We may have American chestnuts again because of plant hybridization. And that's one of the positives of this. And it's just nothing's ever as cut as dry as we would like it to be.
I think I made a joke about this on our Facebook group. And it was like someone had a question. I was like, well, the answer, like so many things, is it depends. It depends what you want to do or what you're trying to do or what's your area is like. It's no one's going to be able to just give you the answer. You can look at guidelines, but it's a lot of it depends on. You may have a shady spot and you find a plant that's supposed to love shade and then you try it and it turns out it doesn't like my shade.
Yeah.
And it could be that individual doesn't like shade as much. It came from a parent species that was from a sunny location and doesn't really thrive in shade or gets outcompeted in shade. So there's all kinds of things that go into it. And but it's good to have the information to make your own decisions off of.
We make choices every day, and some of them are wrong and worse, and it's just like trying to pick the better of the two.
Yeah. So like I said, my article kind of plays off a lot of this, and it's something that they're doing about these kind of questions.
Awesome.
It was from the Piedmont Master Gardeners, which is a master gardener group in Virginia, and it was from their February 2023, newsletter they put out, and it was titled "What is a Native Plant" by Bernice Thieblot. And I'm hoping that you're not a listener, Bernice, because I have a feeling I got your last name wrong. But if you are a member of the Piedmont Master Gardeners, I'd love to hear from you and write in about what you think about all this, because I think this is a really cool thing that they're doing. And as always, I'll read a little bit and then expand on some of my thoughts at the end. So the question arises often as gardeners seek to make their plantings more ecologically valuable. Perhaps the most accurate, if not the most helpful answer is, it depends. Did I just say that? That was not planned.
Wow.
So, the Plant Northern Piedmont Native marketing campaign may have a unique answer. If we assume that no humans brought plants here earlier, then only those plants that greeted the first Europeans to arrive, plants with origins in deep time, should be considered truly native to our part of North America. However, defining only those plants as native would rule out many that today have real ecological value. Doug Talmy and Rich Dark, in their book The Living Landscape, offer a more practical definition. A plant or animal that has evolved in a given place over a period of time sufficient to develop complex and essential relationships with a physical environment and their organisms in a given ecological community. Talmy's later books, Bringing Nature Home and Nature's Best Hope, led to the grassroots movement, Homegrown National Park. The aim of this movement is to encourage the creation of linked habitat corridors to regenerate biodiversity across the nation. Along with other pro-biodiversity efforts, it has succeeded in creating unprecedented demand for native plants. It has also brought about a great deal of frustration on the part of property owners and gardeners because straight species of local genotype native plants, those most likely to flourish and support the local food web, are not readily available to the average gardener. Only a small percent of plants carried by nurseries and garden centers could be considered native in any way, and the great majority of those cultivars are hybrids. As an entomologist, Talmy offers the insect's view of plants. That perspective has informed studies of value of some cultivars, such as those at Mount Cuba Center that they've conducted. Studies of plants' attractiveness to pollinators don't wholly define the ecological value. Like us humans, insects and animals can be attracted to foods that aren't beneficial to their health. In the case of birds, for example, sugary berries may be consumed at a time when they need fat in their diets instead. For this reason, among others, local plant genotypes are most likely to provide the right ecological services if they are available. And apart from commercial availability, there's also the problem of natural availability. Try to find a small-scale, 4 foot tall or less, evergreen shrub species that's native to Central Virginia. I'm assuming they're putting that out to say that it doesn't exist. Which I would probably, I can't think of any that are native here either. So all these issues and factors come to bear when Piedmont Master Gardeners decided to join the Plant Virginia Natives Marketing Partnership. This statewide campaign is intended to bring gardeners, landscapers, and commercial suppliers together in the common cause of more native plants and fewer exotic ornamental plants of little or no ecological value to local ecosystems. Thus, an important aspect of the Plant Northern Piedmont Natives campaign is to inform both buyers and sellers of which plants have value for this region. Taking inspiration from a list generally shared by Northern Virginia campaign, we sought to create the most useful list possible. Our primary resource is the Digital Atlas of the Virginia Flora, which contains the most comprehensive information available of the geographic distribution of vascular plants in the Commonwealth. We have also referred to the Albemarle, I'm not from Virginia, Albemarle County Piedmont Native Plant Database. The great majority of species those sources identify as native are not commercially available. This may simply be because many native plants are unfamiliar and underappreciated. It is certainly also because buyers want plants that fit into design situations, have eye-catching beauty, and resist diseases common to landscapes and gardens. Cultivars are continually being developed to meet such needs. We sought the opinion of Rep.
That's a Glayedley,
author of Piedmont Native Plants, A Guide for Landscapes and Gardens, taking heart from his view that PNPN marketing campaign should not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. We say that a lot too, Fran.
Yes,
we have adopted a definition of native to include selections or cultivars with locally native antecedents, which is a word I'd never read that before. I think I've heard it before, but I've never read it.
I've never actually read it. Yeah, I agree.
Which are likely to be commercially available to gardeners and which either have occurred naturally or have demonstrated ecological value approximately equal to the local species. Rep caution that the origins of many cultivars are a black box, so we refer to multiple web sources, including plant patents. In the attempt to learn cultivar origins, we know that much depth depends on the reason for the cultivar. If it was bred to offer a new color, double blooms, a different flower shape, or red or variegated foliage, insects may not recognize it. However, if the cultivated trait is disease resistance, a larger flower, or a shorter habit, it's likely to be fine. We make our best guess. It's a can of worms and an ongoing effort. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. The resulting list of native plants and cultivars, though perhaps not perfect, is provided to participating nurseries and garden centers where Extension Master Gardener volunteers label those plants found on the list with a bright red Virginia native sticker, which is told to greatly enhance sales.
That's awesome.
And so, what is a native plant for your garden? It may be a local cultivar with local genes. So yeah, that's it's funny how these are just two articles we both found, and then just they really play off each other pretty well. I really agree with what they're doing, and I hope that's something some other master gardener groups or native plant societies or wild ones chapters. Man, that's a really good mission to have, where you can start to go and create. And Jersey Friendly Arts basically did this.
You have to do good marketing because let's face it, it's supply or demand. And the fact of it is there's more demand for Japanese barberry than there is for some of our native plants. So we have to change that with marketing. Or you have to, that supply or that demand has to greatly outnumber what the supply is for people to start listening and make a change.
Yeah, it's something that, I've lost my thought. This happens a lot too. But it's important to have these lists of things that are going to work in your area, that are known to be historically in your area. There's so many people. I just had an email the other day, and someone's like, hey, I want to completely turn my lawn into like a native meadow. I have no idea how. Tell me how to do it. And again, it's one of those things where, well, it depends. I could tell you like a bunch of different stuff, but none of it might work. And none of it might work because I was wrong, but because the effort that it would take to make it work didn't go into it too. There's so much that goes into it. And
I want to say that's even in our industry as a whole. Like, even though we're doing restorations, we'll have someone that says, I have this situation, what should I use? Realistically, it depends. You need that consultant to go out there and observe. If it's along a waterway, you look upstream. What's happening upstream? What's been changed? What's the energy like? It's hard to make those calls over the phone, and you need to have those dedicated professionals that can guide you that way if you want success, and everyone wants success.
At the very least, a list for your area that you can reference and say, hey, this is a good place to start.
Yeah.
And now I can see in my local ecotype being your yard, hey, like I mentioned earlier, you have a Carex pennsylvanica, for instance, and it's supposed to be great in shade, but it's just not working here. And then figure out, is it the soil? Could it be that there's a parent species and it's just this one isn't working? Because there's different genetics in it. Then you can start to really fine tune with your paintbrush, but you need something that, like the Bob Ross, he started everything and he's like, I'm going to put I can't remember the white, but it had a special name for white. I'm going to put this white on the background because that's what I'm going to use as my base coat, and I'm going to build off of that. You need that kind of first list of 5-10 things that you can put out there, and they're probably going to be, if you had 5 things, 3 to 4 are going to be okay.
And sometimes it's just, and we've had this conversation before. We've actually had someone call in. Sometimes it's just knowing where to get that information. So, like, if you want to build a rain garden in New Jersey and you contact Rutgers Water Resource Program, they're probably going to find a way to help you. Or you have a specific condition, like not just like typical normal homeowner stuff. You have some acreage, maybe the Rutgers Cooperative Extension is going to help, or Xerces is going to help you help pollinators in an area if you're working with a group. Like it may not work on an individual property basis, but there are great resources out there if you know where to look. Like Rutgers Water Resource put out a great rain garden manual, fantastic rain garden manual that you can download for free online that will help you and give you a lot of instances if you're in New Jersey. So there's a lot of these resources, wild ones. There's a lot of fantastic places that you can go kind of to gain that knowledge, but it takes a little bit of work. Just don't be discouraged. There's no magic wand where it's like, you need to do this and everything will be great.
Yep. And if you search and search and search and you don't find it in your area, that might be the call to make one.
Yeah.
Like this is what's happening in Central Virginia. I think it's Central Virginia. Yeah. I should know my Virginia counties better, Fran.
Why don't you? Why don't you?
But this is happening in this region. Like I said, we have Jersey Friendly Yards, which they put out. This is what's going to work in coastal New Jersey. It's probably applicable to most of New Jersey, especially the coastal plain parts, and even Delaware and Maryland and Long Island. It'll probably work there too. But I know Long Island has Long Island Native Plant Initiative. They're putting out that stuff. These regional
grassroots
places are putting this stuff together. And like I said, if they aren't, that might be the call to you to start putting that together. And you might not be the right person to do it, but I'm sure you have some friends that you've used for mentorship that can kind of, maybe they know they're the person who can do it, or they know people who can help out. And now all of a sudden you have 10 volunteers who are starting to put this list together and go back and forth. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you have a list.
And don't be discouraged. And here's the sad reality of it is you're going to have that someone where they read something about monarchs, it piques their interest, they go to their local garden center to get milkweed, they don't have it, they give up.
Yep.
It's going to happen. You're going to have those that are discouraged. Or if it becomes too much work or too much effort, it kind of falls by the wayside.
Yeah.
So we have to continue. The dedicated are going to find these ways. We have to make it more mainstream for that. Someone that's not as deeply rooted in native plants. So if they want to dip their toes in, they can get their feet wet.
Exactly.
I think that's a great article. Two great articles really kind of they do tie in very well together.
We have really had articles that work well together a lot recently, which is nice.
Yeah, it really is nice. So this will be posted. We've been doing it the Monday after. So the buzz will be out on Friday. By Monday, you'll be able to vote. So two fantastic articles, both kind of discussing native plants and cultivars. So make sure you go to the Native Plants Healthy Planet Facebook page and vote because.
And of course, the choice is yours.
Before we do listener shout-outs, what do you have in your hand?
Oh, I have a bottle of Magic Mind because I hadn't taken it yet, and I said, I want to take this sometime this morning before it gets too late because I have a lot to do today.
That's a good time.
But I also figured since I had it, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this live on air.
Awesome.
First time ever consumed live on air, a bottle of Magic Mind. And I'll start with the directions. Direction number 1, shake. Direction number 2, breathe. Number 3, drink. Take alongside your morning caffeine. Benefits build with daily use. Best served chilled.
Now, let me ask you a question. Do you like to drink it straight? Do you sip it? Do you do it as a shot? Or do you add it
as a shot?
Okay. I kind of sip it a little bit, actually. Yeah. I do it, not one big shot.
I just want it all at once. It's just let me start my day. But
I enjoy it. And it's like I only have it that one time a day. And it's just like, I don't want this, I'm going to take a moment and appreciate this.
Yeah, so, first, number 1 was shake.
All right.
And then...
Oh, that was good.
Yeah, trying not to hit the microphone while you're opening something. Very difficult.
Are you going to glug?
No, you got to breathe first.
Oh, breathe, sorry.
And this is Magic Mind 4.0.
Yeah.
And
I did notice a difference between 3.0 and 4.0.
There's like a sweet aroma.
Yes.
That's in there. But it's like a little bit vegetal, a little herbaceous smelling.
Yeah.
It's this like bright green color, which is kind of cool.
And like a earthy. Yeah, I agree. Like herbal.
But it's one of those things when you sniff it, just the smelling part is like it opens up your nostrils a little bit. It's invigorating. Just breathing it in, and then you got to drink it.
I think you captured the essence of that pretty good.
Yeah.
You know,
it tastes good too.
I agree.
You can taste the matcha just a little bit, hint. And then you like taste again. It's like a green juice-ish kind of taste where you can taste. It's like a little herbaceous.
Yes,
and but it doesn't taste bad by any means. It tastes really good.
No, it's actually that taste is comforting.
I'm going to try to get the last couple of drops out of it.
You know, I will say this: had I just heard an ad for Magic Mind, I'm going to be honest. I probably wouldn't have tried it. I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to try it because it's become part of my everyday, that I truly appreciate how I feel and who I am by taking it. And I hope that by hearing us talking about it, you're not just kind of letting it blow by. That give this product a shot. It has made a difference with me. It's cut down my coffee consumption. I feel clear. I feel better about myself. I actually make it a point to treat myself better. Because of it.
And we have a code for you.
We do.
If you want to try this out.
You should try it. If you go to www.magicmind.co/native plants, you can get up to 56% off your subscription if you use this code within the next 10 days, and that code is native plants. No space in between. You can, if you don't want to get the subscription, you can get 20% off a single time purchase. But you can cancel the subscription at any time, save yourself some money, get the product. I feel so confident that once you get it, you're going to feel like Tom and I, and even Christiane, we've had her on to talk about it, that you're going to appreciate this product as much as we do. So make sure you go, again, www.magicmind.co/native plants and use the code native plants for 56% off your subscription. So I think we have some listener shout outs.
Yeah, let's do it.
Listener, shout out.
You know, Tom, I'm looking at yours, and it looks like I'm reading a foreign language.
I thought that too. I actually thought that was.
Did I change?
I thought that was one review, but it's two.
I do have to say, I want to thank, first of all the folks at Kind Earth Growers.
Yes,
for following and rating. We appreciate that. But no, we had, I think, something like 10 new 5-star reviews since the last buzz. Not everyone wrote something, but you actually do have a few shout outs this week.
Yeah, and I should say too, I don't remember if I told you this, but I got a text from John Mark Courtney saying that is now a condition of employment at Kind Earth Growers that you need to be subscribed and give a review to Native Plants Healthy Planet. So we appreciate that. You have to
subscribe, download, and review. Yeah. We appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so we had 2 reviews this week, and let me pull them up here again.
2 fantastic reviews.
Yeah,
actually.
the one I really took, I got a lot out of it because I think we do a really good job of this. Not that I don't get that out of every review, but one, like personally, I was like, oh, this is something that I had as a personal goal.
Yes.
And that was from AHSHJ. And they wrote, "Thank you for offering a well-rounded, fun-to-listen-to podcast. This is a well-balanced podcast that a habitat manager can use for information with a utilitarian point of view." And that was one of the things.
And their header was,
make sure we had that in there. Rancher, hunter, conservationist.
Yeah.
So,
and that was one of the things I know that was more your goal, was to tie all these things together of how they relate to native plants. And I think we've managed to do that over time. Which isn't easy. It's a little bit of a tightrope walk, but you know, it's for the greater good of native plants that everyone work together. So
yeah,
which would be utilitarian.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, I guess in essence,
the second one was from TC''Cho, and I don't know if that's how you'd actually say.
I don't know,
but they also said they're in the Mid-Atlantic one, so we're in their neck of the woods, but that they learned about so many of the movers and shakers in the world of ecology from guests we've had on our show, which is another thing, is that we will need to not only just have good guests, and we want to make sure we had a good mix of guests who were known and well-known, but also a bunch who are more regional and unknown. Like I kind of mentioned in my article, it's like, it's important to include some folks that are doing something on a really local level, like Johnny Keespe.
Yeah.
And I'm working in the cities program in New Jersey and doing something that Newark and Patterson can really take a lot of pride in. So someone who's listening in Montreal can say, hey, this is something that's important in my city too. And something like the watershed associations we've had on, or someone like just the small backyard gardeners we've had on. So you can say, hey, you know what? I can make a difference right here. And this isn't happening where I live, but it should happen. I want to make it happen, and kind of give you like a view on how to do that stuff. So there's another one we hope to do about HOAs at some point.
Yeah, we have,
and how to navigate that, because that's been a tricky thing for a lot of people that neither of us have any experience with. So
we have some great guests coming up that are going to be boots on the ground to philosophical to technical. And I'm really proud of that we can offer all that in a range that anyone can take anything from that, because I'm learning a lot from it, and I'm happy that I'm still viewing this as my education, my college course.
Oh yeah, this has been like really, really good. Yeah. And I had another one here I want to throw in here.
Sure,
Fran.
go ahead.
And that was Ellen Anthony, who left a comment on our last episode post. With because it's actually a picture of us. We don't have many episode photo art that actually have us on it.
No, but
this might have been the first or second one.
But I was laughing because it's in the Facebook group, and both of us. Does your Facebook profile picture have a picture of you on it?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, mine does as well.
Yeah,
so.
But it was someone else, or Nick Hadel had commented saying that he had in his head which one was Fran, which one was Tom, and he didn't want to find out which one was which, just for like in case they were backwards for whatever reason. And that's where Ellen Anthony chimed in and said Tom is the younger, larger, lower voice and hair, and more handsome. I kind of inferred through all that.
So I'm the old bald, high pitched freak on the other side. There you go. That's me. So I have this week Tammy Stewart, who's a member of our Native Plants Healthy Planet Facebook group, that shared with me via social media. I've been taking a lot of backyard bird photography, and it's a lot of woodpeckers. And she shared a story about a telephone pole that needed to be taken out, but a woodpecker had made it home, and they're trying to find a way to save the woodpecker. So they married up the new telephone pole next to it, and then tied it together, and then cut off below the home and above the home. So it's just
interesting.
They kept its habitat for it while, like they went out of their way. It cost them money, but everyone felt good about that outcome for that woodpecker. Yeah, and I love seeing that went into it. Wasn't just like technology must prevail and we need to upgrade and improve. There was thought put into local habitat, and I appreciate that, and thank you for sharing that. I don't always get those kinds of things, so it was nice for you to share that with me. I appreciate that.
Now, Fran, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we got a really special call this week.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions, and I want to have them answered immediately.
It's a simple question.
No, I didn't hear you. What was your question?
We mentioned it's kind of like sourcing Beetlejuice. Like we mentioned Saul, I think we mentioned his name in the last 3 buzzes that he hasn't called in, and maybe some of our newer listeners have no idea who Saul is. So I think we rattled his cage enough that he called in. So I don't even know how to intro it. I'm just going to play.
All right.
Hang on, sweetheart. I'm talking on the phone to the television show. Yes. Hello? Hello, my fellow natives. Hello, natives. It's your old friend, Saul Rosenberg. Pam, hello, greetings, Happy New Year, felicitations. And Mr. English Muffin, Thomas, Now, fellas, I guess you heard, I know it's been a while since we've been in touch, I guess you heard that I totaled my car right around Thanksgiving, and I was hurting bad. Oh, my goodness, I had to go buy a new one. Now, I bought a Subaru because it's a very safe car, reportedly, I hope. And I put a Vote for Dukakis bumper sticker on the back. That's a little bit of humor, Pam. I know you're not very much in the humor world. But Thomas will tell you that makes people laugh when they see that. So anyway, so I was convalescing, and I was in a lot of pain. And Pam, I believe it was you who let your television audience know about it. They're on the pod channel you guys broadcast with. because a very nice woman sent me a summer sausage basket from the Hickory Farms, which, as you know, Pam, is one of my favorite gifts of any type, of any season of the year. So, Pam and Mr. Muffin, these viewers are very nice, and this one woman is a true animal lover, which I respect and admire. She told me, Pam, that she was a cougar and asked if I was young and interested. And I told her, well, it depends. I'm not as young as I was, but I'm very, very interested in native plants and ecologically responsible gardening. Now, Mr. Muffin, I hope she's okay because the line went dead right after I told her that. And it was dead like that fat old man, that Murray Garcia, who used to play the guitar and the banjo. And by the way, unfortunately, he will not be down for breakfast tomorrow morning. So how about you fellas? Are you staying healthy? I had the COVID. You've heard of it, the 19. That's the one I had, and I was awful sick, and I was disagreeable like that old man who died. What was his name? Oh, the Bud. He was a miserable, and frankly, nobody liked him or cared for him. But still, it's a loss to somebody, I suppose, that he's dead. So, fellas, that's my report. Keep up with the native gardening. Keep up with everything good and healthy for the Garden State in the new year. And as we say, TTFN, which, Pam, I have to explain.
There are going to be so many people who are going to be so confused.
I'm confused. I have a feeling Saul may still be dipping into the pain meds, maybe just a tad. But I love that he answered the question with, it depends.
Yeah.
That was his first thought. Well, it depends. But it's nice to hear that Saul is doing well. He recovered nicely from his car accident, and he's had his own interactions.
Yeah, when we first started this segment, it was the Saul hour.
It was. Saul
and I
was
think
calling.
if it didn't cut off after 3 minutes, the messages cut off after 3 minutes, it would have been an hour.
Yeah, I have a feeling even though it hangs up on him, he just keeps talking. He has no idea that. But now he thinks we went from the radio to the television.
Yeah.
So I appreciate Saul calling in. It's been a while, so it was nice to hear his voice.
So for those of you who don't know who Saul is, go back and listen to some older episodes. You'll get to hear he did some really great native plant gardening at his property in New Jersey / Delaware. And then for old listeners, I think you'll appreciate a little life update on
yes.
Saul.
So it's you have to go back through a lot of Buzz episodes but he was one of our first callers. Not the first, but one of the first callers in. So we appreciate you calling, Saul. Glad you're feeling better, bud. So we don't have a Tom's Petty?
No, I wanted to skip ahead and kind of just talk about our topic.
Okay.
I do have a Tom's Petty, but I'm going to save it for next time because I think I'll be able to combo some things into one.
No problem. We don't have a Grow Read a Book, and I don't have a Not That I'm One to Complain.
Yeah.
Although I'm pretty sure I've complained. I'm just not playing theme music.
It's all throughout the episode.
I'm now hiding it like Waldo.
But one of the things I want to talk about, because it's something more recent, and is the Norfolk Southern Railroad derailment that happened in East Palestine, Ohio, and some of the ecological ramifications that are happening from that. And it's one of those, I guess we kind of talked about it in our articles earlier, is like, hey, we can really fuss and muss over, but this is a cultivar, and I don't know if I should plant it or not, and it's is it really a native plant, and all this and that. In another part of the country, you literally have something that is destroying, I don't even know how many square miles of habitat.
No, it's
hundreds.
I saw people saying with young kids, like, I grew up here and I can't raise my children here. I don't feel that it's safe because it's unknown and we don't know what the ramifications are going to be, 5-10 years down the road. Yeah. And we have to move. We just have to. And just think about the people that are making those decisions. It's not like someone's waiting to move in there.
Yeah.
If you're deciding to move out, you're taking a loss.
Oh, I know there was they're talking about like class action lawsuits with with just over housing prices.
Yeah.
That's a lot of places, the only money people have saved up is in their
real estate,
property and in the real estate. And now you have something where maybe it was worth a few $100,000 and now it's going to be worth almost nothing.
Yeah.
And, but I know one of the chemicals was vinyl chloride. Now just right before we recorded, I saw there's a longer list that came out and there's fish dying. Now the EPA has come through and said, we aren't finding hazardous levels of a lot of this stuff in waterways or in soil.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of that's still to be determined as well.
It's traveling
yes.
too.
Yeah.
It's not like it stayed put. It's migrating in itself, so it's going to have a longer reach than just East Palace.
And then one of the things I don't know, I keep seeing on Twitter, there's so many people saying this isn't being reported on, but I see it all over the place.
I do too.
But it's like one of the things I see it when I see it like all over the place is they always start off, how come none of the news media is reporting on this? And but I feel like I am seeing the news media report on it.
I've seen it on national, like a large segment on national news.
And then just before, I just heard it was within the last couple of days. This happened 10 days since we were recording this, so it'll be about 2 weeks when people listen to this. But this, there's another one that happened in Houston where there's a bunch of hazardous chemicals on this train and it derailed. And now you have, I don't think it was 50 rail cars. Maybe this one was 50 rail cars that had derailed and now they had to contain what was in them somehow. So I really just wanted to include it because there's still a lot of facts that need to come out about this and how bad is it?
It's just a little bit of perspective, and I my heart feels for everyone that's in that area that's affected, and you figure all that natural land or natural area and wildlife and water, and I don't know what's going to happen to that area.
Yeah, yep.
Nature. We always say that nature rebounds, but we may be talking decades.
Yeah,
or maybe never. I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just when we're thinking about those cultivar debates and, this is native to Delaware, but it's not native to New Jersey. Should I plant it? Should I not? It's just creating habitat in your yard. Whether it doesn't matter if it's perfect or not, is putting something back that is being destroyed in other. And this is just a catastrophic degradation of some of this habitat. But just you have warehouses being put in, shopping malls and parking lots and all this stuff. It's happening every day. Maybe they don't have the chemical ramifications, but it's happening every day that we're destroying habitat, and just anything you can do to put a little bit back in your own yard goes a long way at the end of the day.
If you're thinking about it, that's a great first step, and it's, it's hard to, like we said, it's all choices that you make. If you're making the choice to improve habitat, even if it's not perfect, good is good.
Yeah.
I agree. So I wanted to throw a different take on Take It or Leave It at you. Since we've recorded our first Native Plant Every Day with Tom and Fran. How you feeling about that?
I was going to say I'm leafing it, Fran.
You're leaving it?
I'm just teasing. It's
we found it become increasingly harder to do a second podcast, and we couldn't do it without Christiane and having someone else help us get involved, because there's no way we would have been able to do it on our own.
Yeah,
but. How do you feel? Do you feel as we go that this is still a worthwhile venture that we should?
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of people who came to Native Plants Healthy Planet because they listen to a Native Plant every day. And vice versa. There's plenty of people who listen to Native Plant every day because they hear us talk about it here. I'm really excited for how it's going to pan out. It's the episode 1 was a lot cleaner than I remember season 1 being.
I was going to say, I think season 1...
We learned on the fly.
Christiane runs a much tighter ship than I do, and a lot of the dumpster fire that was season 1 was because I was left in charge. So it's good that we have someone that is making sure this is a tightly run ship, and I think it will only get better. I think the first one, there was a lot of things that we were trying to get our footing, and maybe we could have added some extra content that. We're just trying to tread water. But I think as we go along and we get comfortable with it, the season's going to be really good.
Yeah. I'm really excited.
I'm hoping people are going to be happy with this.
Because I know a lot of people learned about so many plants through this. And it maybe they learned some of the facts, and then they went home and they looked it up, and they're like, oh, that's actually I do want to put that in my yard.
Yeah.
Or I want to find where occurs naturally and go actually see it.
Or I love that plant, but I didn't know this about it.
Yep.
Like, this is fantastic.
Yep.
So
exactly.
It was a lot of great information. Today was a plant that we knew, but we weren't extremely familiar with, so it was a great learning experience for us.
Yeah.
And the format was tweaked just enough that I think everyone will find it.
Yeah.
Most people, I don't want to say everyone. Most people will find it.
You'll get to play along with us. We've really cleaned up the quiz in the beginning for who can guess what plant, and then the lightning round at the end.
I'm feeling like a fraud, though. Like, I need to rebound. I did not do well today. If I don't rebound soon, people are going to start questioning whether I really know.
The good news is you have
35
four chances a week. So.
Yeah, that's true. Right now, I'm a big goose egg, so not doing so hot. So, but I think that pretty much wraps it up.
Yeah.
We covered a lot today. I'm really happy with what we accomplished.
Yeah, so that is it. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed listening to The Buzz. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Native Plants Healthy Planet, presented by Magic Mind and Pinelands Nursery.
Thank you, RJ Comer, for our Buzz theme music. We couldn't do it without you. Wouldn't be the same. Make sure you stream or buy RJ's music wherever you consume your music, or check out his Americana playlists on Pandora. You'll be glad you did. I listen to them quite often. Follow us on Twitter at Pineland Nursery, Facebook at Pinelands Nursery NJ, Instagram at @nativeplants_healthy planet, or at Pinelands Nursery, and of course YouTube at Pinelands Nursery. We have the question and comment line that Saul called in on. You can call us at 215-346-6189. I will repeat, 215-346-6189. You can ask a question or leave a comment, and we'll do our best to play it on a future episode of The Buzz. And the Native Plants Healthy Planet Facebook group hit 1,500 members over the last day. So really excited about that. And the members are just pouring in, and the amount of interaction is really increased. So a lot of new members with a lot of great things to say.
Oh, yeah. So you can buy Native Plants Healthy Planet merch at our website, www.nativeplantshealthyplanet.com. There's a link at the top, takes you to our Teespring store. And just a reminder that the money that we're profiting from that, we're not keeping. We're taking that and giving it to organizations that we feel are doing a really good job, boots on the ground kind of stuff in creating native habitats or promoting the message of native plants. So make sure you check that out if you haven't already. And then you can listen to Native Plants Healthy Planet really on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you consume your podcast, you'll be able to find us there. I haven't found one where we aren't.
No, I just did a quick Google search yesterday and found a bunch I didn't even know about.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So it's a good native plant every day when Tom and Fran on most big ones.
Yep.
You know, you'll find it in most places, but this one you'll find Native Plants Healthy Planet. You'll find
so and you can even ask Alexa to play the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast. So that's something to try when you're washing the dishes. You can do it hands free, which is nice. So do us a favor, leave us a 5-star review, hit subscribe. That goes a long way into promoting the message of native plants, getting more people to hear us, and hopefully start their own native plant journey if they haven't already.
I agree.
So, Fran, I don't know if you had a secret, so I threw one in here.
And I see what yours is, and I got to tell you, I told Agatha about it last night. It's freaking me out still.
Yeah.
It really is freaking me out. It's not coincidental. It's too many things to be coincidental.
Yeah. So, well, I shared this in the office the other day, but my son, like many 2-year-olds,
Agatha was saying her son did.
Yeah, has started to see ghosts, which I guess is putting it lightly. And it freaked me out the other night a little bit because I walked in. He's crying at like 2:30 in the morning, and I walk in. Hey, what's going on, buddy? And he's like, I'm scared. And I'm like, oh, what are you scared of? He's like, the person sitting in the chair. I'm like, what do you mean? I shined my flashlight on the chair. Thank God there was no one there. That would have been really freaky, at least that I could see. But yeah, I don't want to know how in depth I want to get with it, but he's been describing ancestors with remarkable detail, like names, appearance,
for people,
nicknames for people, like messages that they have for people. And I'm like, holy crap, this is very, very strange.
I was saying, like, and the things he's telling you aren't vague that would apply to a large number of people. He's narrowed it down pretty close.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Without ever having heard of, met, or seen the person.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's It was a little weird.
And yeah, it's a little freaky.
Yeah, but yeah, the one when I was freaked out when he said at first I'm like egging him on a little bit, saying, "Oh yeah, and what did she say to you?" And then it's like eventually got really real. But then when he said there was someone sitting in the chair, I was like, "Oh, this is very weird."
Yeah,
I don't know if I like this anymore. I'm a little scared of the dark though. So
yeah, oh yeah. What if it was the bird lady?
Oh my gosh, that would have been
from Mary Poppins.
Could you imagine?
That wouldn't have been good.
Even after I saw there was no one in the chair, I was still worried there was someone in the room.
Are you looking every time you go in the room now to see if someone's in the chair?
I don't know if I'm going to go in there. I think I'll just turn the lights on before I go in.
So,
well, that was his nightlight was keeping him up at one point, so he unplugged it. And then after that, I'm like, I'm plugging this back in because I think that's kind of why he's scared. Yeah. If it means he stays up a little later because the nightlight's on and it's not perfectly dark versus him like being freaked out every night, I'm leaving the nightlight.
Now listen, I will say that typically I'm a skeptic. Like I don't believe in that. It's hard to deny that, but Agatha was telling me that one of her former students, they have a child that is seeing ghosts, and he said he was playing ball with someone, and when his wife rounded the corner, she saw the ghost of who his son said he was playing with.
Really?
And they moved.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to deny someone that is so convinced they saw something that they're willing to uproot and move.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, like, you have to take that with some seriousness, whether you're skeptic or not. I was like, oh, yeah, I'm thankful I'm not having to make those decisions.
Yeah.
Hopefully you don't have to move, Tom.
Yeah, I hope so, too. Yeah. As long as it's relatives, I think we're okay. The house isn't that old. So, but then again, this person never lived in this house or knew about this house. So how'd she find us? But,
I don't know. You listed on Zillow?
it's probably out there someplace. But
on the Spirit Zillow?
They read about all my success as a native plant podcaster and knew where to find us. So
awesome.
All right. Well, with that, thank you, everyone. I'm Tom.
And I am Fran. Thank you again, everyone. Coming up next week, we have a fantastic guest. I don't want to ruin it, but we're really excited to speak with this person. So it's going to be a fantastic episode. I think you'll all agree and appreciate this one. So make sure you tune in next week, and we'll see you again next time. And until then, keep it native.
Thank you for listening to the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Pinelands Nursery. Remember to like, share, follow, and comment.